Imagine this. An ice cream truck isn't just selling treats, it's harvesting your nightmares. What if a single scoop could turn your dreams into a death sentence? Tonight, we're diving into a chilling tale of a clinical trial gone wrong where the jingle you hear might be your last. Ready for the horror? Hey, horror fam! Welcome back to the channel where the scares are real and the stories hit hard. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell because you don't want to miss what's coming. Tonight, we're unraveling the ice cream truck horror story, a twisted tale of science, suspense, and screams. Let's get into it. Picture this. It's 2025, and in a sleepy California suburb, a clinical trial promises easy cash. The ad's simple volunteers needed for dream research, $500 a night. For 22-year-old Ethan Carter, a broke college dropout working the graveyard shift at a gas station, it's a no-brainer. He signs up, expecting a few nights of weird sleep studies. What he doesn't know, this trial's run by a shady biotech firm called Somnus Corp, and their secret weapon isn't a pill, it's an ice cream truck. Yeah, you heard me right, an ice cream truck. But this isn't your friendly neighborhood treat wagon. It's a rolling lab, decked out with medical gear, pumping out a jingle that's more sinister than sweet. Ethan's first night, he meets Dr. Leela Vosser, cold, sharp-eyed scientist who hands him a waiver and a cone of vanilla swirl. "Eat this," she says. "It's part of the protocol." He shrugs. "Free ice cream, right?" Big mistake. That night, Ethan dreams. Not normal dreams, vivid, bone-chilling ones. He's chased through a foggy forest by a faceless figure in a white coat, holding a dripping syringe. He wakes up screaming, drenched in sweat, but Dr. Voss just smiles. "Phase 1 complete," she says. Ethan's freaked out, but $500 is $500. He goes back the next night. Here's where it gets wild. Each night, Ethan eats the ice cream and the dreams get worse. Night 2, he's trapped in a maze of rusted ice cream trucks, the jingle echoing like a taunt. Night 3, he's drowning in a vat of melting vanilla, clawing at the surface as hands pull him under. Every time he wakes, he's shaking, but Somnus Corp ups the pay $700, then $1,000. Ethan's hooked, not just on the cash, but on figuring out what's happening. He starts noticing things, the trucks parked outside his apartment even when he's not at the trial. The jingle follows him, faint but constant, like it's burrowing into his skull. Now, think about this. Have you ever had a dream so real it messed with your head all day? That's Ethan's life now, 24/7. The line between awake and asleep blurs. He's paranoid, jumping at shadows, hearing that damn jingle in the shower, at work, everywhere. And here's the kicker. He's not the only one. Turns out, Somnus Corp's been running this trial across California's security guards, diner workers, motel clerks all night shift, folks desperate for cash. And they're all dreaming the same thing, a predator in a white coat hunting them down. But here's the hook: some of them aren't waking up. Ethan digs online and finds Whisper-style volunteers vanishing, found dead in their beds, faces frozen in terror. Autopsies say heart attacks, but no one's buying it. He confronts Dr. Voss, demanding answers. She just smirks. "The ice cream's a catalyst," she says. "It amplifies your subconscious. If you die in the dream, you die for real." Ethan's stomach drops. This isn't a study, it's a death trap. Ethan tries to quit, but it's too late. The ice cream's in his system, and the dreams don't stop. Night 4, the figure catches him, stabs him in the chest. He wakes up with a real wound, blood soaking his shirt. He calls the cops, but they laugh it off. Dreams can't hurt you, kid. Alone and terrified, he fights back. He smashes the truck's windows one night, finds vials labelled Dream Serum X -13 and a list of name shiz included, some crossed out. Dead. Ethan's breaking. He hasn't slept in days, surviving on coffee and fear. His mom calls, begging him to come home, but he can't. Leaving means facing the truck on the open road. He's trapped, and the audience feels it. That gut-wrenching helplessness when the monster's inside you, not just out there. Night 5, he arms himself kitchen knife, flashlight, a plan. He eats the ice cream one last time, dives into the dream on purpose. This time, he's ready. The figure lunges, but Ethan stabs back. They wrestle in a nightmare void, the jingle deafening. He wakes up alive, barely, the knife in his hand slick with blood that isn't his. The truck's gone that morning. Did he win? A week later, Ethan's Freno dreams. No truck. He thinks it's over. Then his mom visits, humming a tune. That tune, the jingle. She smiles too wide and offers him a bowl of vanilla ice cream. Found it in the freezer, she says. Ethan freezes. Somnuscorp didn't stop, they spread it. The ice cream's out there, in stores, homes, waiting. And the figure? It's not one person, it's anyone who's tasted it. Ethan's story ends with him running, but the horror's just begun. Every scoop's a gamble now. Is it safe, or is it a ticket to your own nightmare death? The first rule of the night shift: trust no one, especially the ones who order vanilla. The neon sign outside scoops and smiles, flickered like a dying heartbeat, casting jagged shadows across the empty parking lot. Inside the 24-hour diner, Mia Torres wiped down the counter for the 3rd time in an hour, her fingers trembling just enough to notice. It was 3:17 a.m., and the usual quiet of the graveyard shift had curdled into something thicker, heavier, like the air before a storm. The hum of the ice cream machine was the only sound, a relentless buzz that made her skin crawl. She scanned the windows again, her pulse kicking up. "You're being paranoid," she told herself. But in 6 months of serving graveyard stragglers, she'd learned one thing. The loneliest hour of the night was also the most dangerous. Mia wasn't new to the grind. She'd taken the job to pay off student loans, but the psychological toll was starting to creep in. The isolation gnawed at her, turning every shadow into a threat. She'd read about night shift worker security guards, motel clerks, diners staffing dangers in California's eerie moonlit hours. The unpredictability kept her paranoid, her eyes darting to the corners of the room even when she knew she was alone, or thought she was. Tonight, something felt off. She gripped the flashlight she kept under the counter, a heavy, metal one she'd bought after a trucker told her it doubled as a weapon. Safety wasn't guaranteed out here, and she'd learned to trust her instincts. Her backup plan was simple. The diner's back door led to a service road, and her car keys were always in her pocket. Still, the thought of running didn't ease the knot in her stomach. The bell above the door jingled, and Mia flinched. A man stepped inside, tall, wiry, with a stained denim jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just shuffled to a booth in the corner and sat facing her. Mia's pulse quickened. "Welcome to Scoops and Smiles," she said, forcing cheer into her voice. "What can I get you?" Ice cream, he muttered, his voice low and gravelly. Vanilla. She nodded, turning to the machine, but her eyes flicked to the security camera above the counter. It had been busted, for weeks management didn't care enough to fix it. As she scooped the ice cream, she stole glances at him. His hands were gloved, unusual for the mild spring night. And he wasn't eating when she slid the bowl across the table, just staring at her, unblinking. "You work here alone?" he asked suddenly. Mia's mouth went dry. "No," lied. "My co-worker's in the back." She straightened, asserting authority. "You're not supposed to be in this after midnight. It's off limits." He smirked, a thin, predatory twist of his lips. "Didn't see a sign." "It's there," she snapped, pointing to a faded notice by the door. "Who are you? I need to see some ID if you're going to sit here." He didn't answer, just stood and ambled toward the counter. Mia's grip tightened on the flashlight. Her gut screamed at her to move, to run, but she held her ground, heart hammering. "Back off," she warned, raising the light like a club. The man paused, then chuckled a sound that sent ice down her spine. "Relax, sweetheart. Just wanted more ice cream." But his eyes didn't match his words. They were cold, calculating. That's when she noticed the van parked outside, half hidden by the dumpster. It hadn't been there when her shift started. The side door was cracked open, and in the dim glow of the streetlight, she glimpsed something inside. A coil of rope, a roll of duct tape, a glint of metal hunting knife. Her breath hitched. She'd heard stories night shift workers disappearing, predators stalking isolated spots like this. This guy wasn't here for ice cream. "Get out," she said, voice trembling but firm. "Now." He tilted his head, like a hunter sizing up prey, then lunged. Mia swung the flashlight, catching him across the jaw. He stumbled, cursing, and she bolted for the back door. Her sneakers pounded the linoleum as she shoved through, the night air hitting her like a slap. She fumbled with her keys, glancing back to see him staggering after her, blood trickling from his lip. The van's engine roared to life as she reached her car. Tires screeched, and he peeled out of the lot, vanishing into the dark. Mia collapsed against her driver's side door, gasping, her hands shaking so badly she dropped her keys. She didn't know how long she stood there, the hum of the diner's lights still echoing in her ears, before she called the police. When the cops arrived, they found the van abandoned a mile down the road. Inside was a stash of horrors: rope, duct tape, gloves, a knife and a stolen security badge from a nearby office building. The man, they later told her, had a history of assault charges. He'd planned this scoped the diner, maybe even ambushed a guard somewhere else first. The laptops and office safe he'd likely hit earlier that night were still in the bag, evidence of his calculated predation. Mia had narrowly escaped becoming his next target. The police couldn't do much beyond filing a report. "We'll keep an eye out," one officer said, his tone hollow. "Stay vigilant." But that was it, no constant protection, no guarantees. Just reassurance that felt like a band-aid on a gaping wound. Mia went back to work the next night. She had tow bills, didn't stop. But the diner felt different now. The stillness was heavier, the fluorescent hum louder, the shadows deeper. Every creak made her jump, every customer a potential threat. She kept the flashlight closer, checked IDs with a fierceness that surprised even her, and triple-locked the back door. Her gut had saved her once. She wouldn't ignore it again. Weeks passed, but the fear didn't fade. It lingered like a stain, seeping into every shift. She'd catch herself scanning the parking lot for that van, imagining him out there waiting. The psychological scars ran deep heightened anxiety, paranoia, a constant dread of the unknown. Night shifts weren't just a job anymore, they were a battlefield. And Mia knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the next scoop of vanilla might come with a price she couldn't pay. It was late June, and I'd just moved into this little rental house on the edge of town. Quiet street, old trees, the kind of place where you hear crickets at night and not much else. I was 23. Working a dead-end night shift at a warehouse, and honestly, I liked being alone. Or at least, I thought I did. That first week, I'd crash on my couch after work, windows open to let in the breeze, and everything was fine until I started hearing it. That ice cream truck jingle, you know, the one cheerful, kinda off-key, the kind that used to make you run outside with $1 as a kid. Except it was 2 a.m. and no ice cream truck had any business being out there. The first night, I ignored it, figured it was some weird echo, maybe a car radio down the block. But it came back the next night. And the night after that. Always around the same time, faint but clear, drifting through the dark. I'd sit there, staring at the ceiling, trying to place it. My street was a dead end, no traffic, no kids, nothing. Just me and that sound. It wasn't loud, but it had this way of crawling under your skin, like it was calling me. By the fourth night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped outside. The air was warm, sticky, that summer night heaviness. My porch light barely touched the yard, and beyond that, it was just shadows. I stood there listening. The jingle was louder now, coming from the end of the street where the pavement met the woods. I walked toward it, barefoot on the cool asphalt, telling myself I was just curious. But deep down, I was scared. You know that feeling when you're alone at night and every noise feels like a warning? That was me. I got to the corner, and there it was an ice cream truck. Old, rusted, parked half off the road like it had been abandoned. The paint was peeling, but I could still make out faded cartoons of smiling kids and cones. The jingle was coming from a busted speaker on top, looping over and over. No driver, no lights, just this thing sitting there in the dark. I should have turned back, but I didn't. I got closer. Close enough to see the serving window was open a crack. The inside was pitch black, and this weird smell hit me like spoiled milk mixed with something metallic. My flashlight caught on something inside a stack of empty ice cream tubs, smeared with streaks that didn't look like chocolate. I took a step back, and that's when I heard it. A shuffle. Something moving inside the truck. My heart was pounding now. I live alone, Guy's no roommate, no dog, just me. If something happened out there, no one would know. I thought about my mom, how she'd beg me not to move so far from home. I could almost hear her voice telling me to run. But I froze. The shuffling stopped, and for a second it was dead quiet except for that jingle, still playing like some twisted lullaby. Then the window slid open. Slow, deliberate, like someone was teasing me. I couldn't see a face, just a hand pail, bony, with nails that looked too long. It reached out, holding something. A cone. Vanilla, dripping onto the ground. A voice came from the dark raspy, barely human. "Free sample," it said. I stumbled back, tripped over my own feet, and hit the pavement hard. When I looked up, the hand was gone, and the window was shut. I ran home, locked every door, and sat there with a kitchen knife until sunrise. I didn't sleep. I kept hearing that jingle in my head over and over, like it was stuck on repeat. The next day, I told myself it was a pranksome creep messing with me, but I couldn't shake how wrong it felt. Like whatever was in that truck wasn't just watching me knew me. Things got worse after that. The truck started showing up every night, closer each time. First the end of the street, then halfway down, then right outside my house. I'd peek through the blinds and see Itzilent, except for that jingle, the speaker glowing faintly in the dark. I stopped going outside. I'd hear it idling out there for hours, and sometimes I'd swear I heard footsteps on my porch. Soft, careful steps, like it was testing me. One night, I found something on my doorstep, an ice cream cone, half melted, stuck in the mat like a gift. There was a note tucked under it, handwritten in shaky letters, "Eat it." I threw it in the trash, but the smell lingered sickly sweet, rotting. That's when I started dreaming about it. In the dreams, I'd be back at the truck, and that hand would pull me inside. I'd wake up gasping, tasting vanilla on my tongue. I was losing it, guys. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. I called a friend to stay over, but he laughed it off, said I was paranoid. The night he left, the truck was back. And this time, it didn't just sit there. The door creaked open, and something stepped out. It was tall, too tall, wrapped in a stained apron like some warped ice cream man. Its face, I can't even describe it. It was wrong. Like a mask that didn't fit, with eyes that didn't blink. It moved toward my house, dragging something behind Ita's sack, leaking that same metallic smell. I hid, phone dead, lights off, praying it'd leave. The jingle stopped, and I heard it at my door scratching, whispering, "Free sample," then silence. I waited hours before checking. It was gone, but the sack was on my porch. I opened it, hands shaking, and found ice cream tubs, dozens of them, labelled with names. My neighbours, my friend who'd stayed over, even my mum. And at the bottom, one with my name, empty, waiting to be filled. I moved out the next day, packed a bag and left. But here's the twist that still haunts me. A week later, I saw that truck again. Different town, different street, same jingle. It wasn't after meets after everyone. And somewhere out there, it's still serving.